back to Hot Flashes and Cool Topics, everybody. Today, we have Amber Nash on, and you probably know Amber Nash from Archer, which is just probably one of the best animated series on the FX network. And you are the character of Pam, which is becoming a favorite of many fans on Archer. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, thank you. My first question is, what is it like to do voiceover work when you have a character that people recognize now, but they don't recognize you?
Yeah, it's kind of awesome. It's like the perfect thing, because what's great about voice work, number one, is that you don't have to memorize lines, which I absolutely hate doing. And as an actor, it's like just part of the job. So you don't have to be camera ready. Like, you don't have to do hair and makeup. You just kind of show up and get to do like the best part of your job, which is the fun part, which is acting. You don't have to worry about what you look like. It's just about what you sound. And the cool thing is too, is particularly in the beginning, because I was just an actor from Atlanta that did like comedy on the weekends at theater. Nobody knew who I was. And so I could totally skate around with nobody knowing who I was, because nobody had any idea what I looked like. Now it's a little bit different because I've done interviews and podcasts and stuff like that, and people kind of have a better idea of what I look like. But when I'm with actors like Aisha, who's like so well known, and she gets like mobbed, when we're in like a hotel lobby or something, I'm like, there's a part of you that's like, well, I wonder what that would be like. And then another part of you that's like, I'm so glad I don't have to deal with that.
Yeah, I think that would get old really quick. I think that it would be great initially, but I think, oh my goodness, I could just go out, put my baseball cap on. Nobody's going to know.
I don't want to have to look good when I go to Target.
Yes. Right? Yeah. Run to the store. I think that's amazing. And you were so you said you were theater and also improv before all of this got started. And I've looked at your stories about how you got into this. And can you share how, I just love hearing your stories when you were on Frisky Dingo about how that all came about. Can you share with our listeners how that started?
So I still live in Atlanta, and I was working at an improv theater there called Dad's Garage that I found when I was doing after college. And then I got my first job. I actually got a degree in psychology. And so I was working as a counselor, and I needed an outlet. I was just like, I needed something creative. And so I found Dad's Garage, and I started taking classes there, and then kind of moved my way up until I was performing. And it was through that I met the guys that now make Archer, that were then making Frisky Dingo, which is a show that was on Adult Swim. And Adult Swim is based in Atlanta because it's a Turner station. And so they were just guys making cartoons in Atlanta, and we were guys doing comedy. And so one of their animators was one of our improvisers. His name's Christian Danley. So he would make cartoons during the day and then come play with us at night. And so I knew him. So we all kind of knew each other, and they needed somebody to come in and just do like stupid voices, to be honest with you. And I was like, I can do stupid voices. And so I'm not good with there's so many voice artists that are really good with dialects and accents and all that stuff, and I can just basically do character voices. And so I was right for something they were doing, and then they just kept hiring me, because they could literally call me and I'd be at their house where they made the cartoon in 10 minutes, and they could pay me under the table, and I'd take it to a check cashing place and cash it.
No, it's so
not anymore.
Yeah. And I love how you said they had you in this little closet, a door and another door locked, and you were, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's just an old house that they I guess the rent was cheap, and they would literally lock me in a closet they had outfitted with soundproofing. And now today I'm old enough to know how dangerous things are. I'm I would have a panic attack if they tried, because I would close the door and then they'd lock another door behind me. And it's that would never fly today.
No, if there was, a fire and a codes and everything. Totally. Yes. Yeah.
It's amazing what we do when we're starting out. We look back on, what were we thinking?
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah. And it's just oh, go ahead, Colleen.
No, I was just going to say, for the three people who haven't heard of Archer that are listening, because everybody's heard of Archer, it centers around a spy, an international spy, and you play Pam. Mm-hmm. And you've been doing it it's 12 seasons. I don't know how many years has that been?
So it's about 12 years. So I think.
So one season a year.
Yeah, we started recording the pilot in 2009, and I think that it aired in 2010. The first season aired then. So it's about a season a year.
Yeah, my son has been watching it. Of course, he's 28. So
Right.
that's when I
Perfect
first heard of it. He's the perfect age. He's probably a photo of him is your typical fan right
Your
there.
demographic
Yes,
right there.
yeah. And
Totally.
I started hearing of it when he would be home at Christmas holidays or things, and he'd have this show on, and I always end up doing it. He'll have something on and I'll hear it. And I'll turn around, what are you watching? And then,
Especially the dialogue on Archer.
and then he'll hear me laughing.
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, so mom likes this. So he was very excited that we were interviewing you today.
Yeah, that's really
Yes.
cool. Yeah, it's not, it's an animated show, but it's not for kids. It's pretty dirty. But the thing I will say about it is that we earn our dirtiness because it's also a really smart show.
Right.
So I think that kind of balances out how raunchy you can get at times.
Yeah.
Has there been a storyline or dialogue that you've gotten that you're just like, I can't do it. I can't say it.
Coming up in comedy, like theater, improv, I feel like I said and done everything at this point. So I wasn't shocked by a lot because I came up and I was one of just a couple of women at my theater in the beginning. So there weren't, I was one of the boys for a lot of it. So I'd heard a lot. And honestly, there are things that I'm like, is this going to make it, like, is this going to get on television? Because what they're asking me to say is like pretty dirty and it always flies. I think it's because the show doesn't come on until like 10 p.m. and FX has always been like really cool with letting us do whatever. As long as, we don't get in trouble outside of the network, then they let us do anything.
Yeah. I think, they push the envelope and it's just enough to just stay right where it is. Yeah, I love that.
That's funny.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been doing it for 12 years and it's kind of, like you said, you can do that and fly under the radar, but now you're working on an indie film. Can you talk about that one with Aisha Tyler, who you mentioned in the very beginning?
Yeah. So my husband for 10 years was the artistic director of Dad's Garage, which is a theater that I work at. And he's transitioned into now wanting to do more like on-camera stuff, film and television. He's a writer and he wants to produce. And so he wrote this script for this holiday movie, How to Ruin the Holidays. It's about a struggling comedian that goes home for the holidays and her family, like many families, is just like, they're just falling apart. And she's got a brother with special needs and her dad and her brother's trying to keep the family together. And then she's got a sister that's kind of competitive with her and it's just a mess. And so he wrote the script. We did a Kickstarter campaign and raised a bunch of our money to make the film. We're going to be shooting in December. Colin Mockery, the great comedian Colin Mockery, is going to play my dad. And then we have an incredible actor with special needs that's going to play my brother. His name's Luke Davis. We've worked with him before on a short film. And Aisha Tyler's in it. Henry Zabrowski, who's a podcaster, you might know him. He's going to be in it. So we've got a really great cast. Actually, our first reading that we're doing as a cast is tonight. So we're getting really excited. We're going to be shooting in December.
Oh, that's really exciting.
Great. Now, I was just going to ask you, so you don't often get in front of the camera. Is it a little nerve-wracking to know now all of a sudden, hello, in front of the camera?
It's a different muscle. I mean, because I did come up doing theater, like I'm used to acting with my full body, but theater acting and camera acting is very different because theater acting, you kind of need to be a lot bigger. And then camera acting, like if you were doing what you would do on stage, it's way too much. And then voice acting is totally different. So there's so many different like ways to do stuff. So it is like different muscles, but I also am so excited to do it because I don't get the opportunity to do it very often. So it's just a real thrill for me. It's a big challenge.
Yeah. And I saw on one of your interviews as well that you said when you're doing your voiceover, how they tell you to move around and use your body instead of just standing there. And why is that the case?
Yeah. So when I was first starting, I think the first few jobs I did voice work wise were like radio spots, for like a chicken sandwich place. And I was so afraid to make noise in the booth because like if you hit the microphone or, mess something up or you have bracelets on that are making noise, like they can't use the take. So I would just like stand really still and like say my lines. And they were like, that's not what we want. You sound like a robot. And so a guy that I work with was like, you've got to move around in the booth and like, you can hear a smile. And there's so many things that happen in your voice that are that are part of your body that they won't see, but they'll totally hear. And so now it's a totally different thing. Like when I'm in the booth, I'm sweaty afterwards because I've been moving and like exerting. And, you know, you have to, like, especially on Archer, there's a lot of action scenes. So you have to make like, you have to run, or you have to be out of breath, or you have to be pushing something or getting shot. Like it's a lot of active work in the booth.
Yeah, the episode where Pam gets in, is it the mixed martial arts booth, or yes, and I bet you were exhausted after that one. That had to be hard. Yeah,
it's really fun.
Yeah, and then you also have the web series, The Heart to America, or Heart of America. Sorry, Heart of America. And can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that was one of the first things that my husband and I did together outside of doing theater. So I wanted to do more on-camera work, and I was like, hey, could you write something for me? And he was like, yeah, let's do it. So him and his comedy partner, Arlen, who's actually directing our film later this year, they wrote the script for Heart of America, and I get to play 4 different characters. So it's so much fun because there's like total makeup and costume and prosthetics and the whole thing. And I play the 4 main characters, and it's a web series. So each episode is like 5 minutes long. There's 10 episodes. It's all online. You can go to Heart of America, HART, that's the character's last name, heartofamerica.com, and see all the episodes. It was so much fun to make. And then after we did that, we were like, wow, let's keep going. And so then we made the short film, and now we're making the full length film.
Wow.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Is it hard when you are doing voiceover work to connect with the other actors, because you're not in the same room? You're not feeding off the other actors. What's that experience like?
Yeah, that's such a great question, because that's so important, like timing and energy, and just kind of so many things are dependent on being with that other person or seeing that other person. And so for me in the beginning, it was really hard because I'd never met any of the other actors that were playing the parts on Archer. So I was just standing in a booth with a microphone. Now it's a lot easier because I can imagine how they deliver their lines because it's been so long. But the other cool thing that we do is oftentimes when I'm reading my lines, I'll just read my line one way and then I'll do it 2 different ways, and then we're done unless something's not quite right. And then sometimes scenes they'll be timing dependent. So instead of me just reading my lines, me and the director will read the scene together so that we can get that timing back and forth if that's an important thing in that scene. So lots of times I'm usually playing with the director, whose name is Casey Willis, and he's also a comedy guy and an improviser. So we have a lot of fun together. But yeah, that's such a great question because it makes a really big difference. And most animated shows do like just solo, recording, but Bob's Burgers is a show where they all get together in one booth and they record all their lines together, which is so much fun. Like what a dream that would be to get together with everybody and record. But the problem is it's more expensive because it takes longer and you got to get everybody in the same city and all that stuff. But yeah, there's not a lot of shows that do it that way.
Wow, because that is so hard, because you'll see the characters talking over each other, like you would naturally have a conversation. So that is amazing that they do that.
And that's all just amazing editors. Like our
editors. I was your editors must be very busy.
Totally.
Yeah. I don't envy your editors. That's a lot of work. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So it's 12 seasons that you've been in. Your character has changed a lot. Where do you see it going on endlessly, or is there a path for Archer?
I don't know for sure. Like I didn't think that it would get more than 2 seasons, to be honest with you. We were all like, is this thing going to work? And then people really liked it. And then I think for a comedy to stay fresh, like it's got to mix stuff up. And when you mix stuff up, you don't make everybody happy. There's always going to be people that don't like what you're doing. And so we had 3 seasons, 8, 9, and 10, where we just went completely out of this world, literally. Like we played in different genres because the main character was in a coma and these were all coma dreams. And so that for the actors was super fun because it was basically like getting a brand new job. And so every season I got to play a brand new character that sounded just like my old character. So it wasn't a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. And so then that kept it fresh. And then when we went back to the real world, everybody was excited about that because that was fresh again. And so now we're 2 seasons into being back into the real world. And it's been a lot of fun. Our main writer, who was the show creator, he wrote every episode for 10 seasons. He left after season 10. So the last 2 seasons have been written by totally different people. So we've been getting used to that voice too. So it's been really interesting. I hope that it goes on forever, because I will literally do this job as long as they'll let me do it. But I just don't know. I don't know what the future holds. But I will say that I think the pandemic helped, honestly, because voice work was one of those things that we could continue to do while things were shut down. And it was pretty safe and pretty easy. And all the animators went home with like all the computers that they needed and just were animating the stuff from home. I mean, it took longer and it was harder for them, but on the voice side of things, it was a lot easier. So I hope it goes on for many more years.
Yeah. And I am so sorry you all lost Jessica Walter. I mean, that really was a hard one. I mean, I loved her on Arrested Development, and my son, when he was watching Archer and telling me about it, he's like, that's his Lucille, that's Lucille, you know, and he was telling me all about it. And I'm so sorry about that.
But then a wonderful, wonderful woman, like just a genuinely, like, she was as much fun as anybody, and such a class act and like such an icon. We learned so much from her over the years.
Yeah. I mean,
you just answered my question. I was going to say, what was it like working with her?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're early into your midlife years, but how are you? And you are married. You do not have children. Do you have pets? Because your pets can often become your children when you have children. How are you finding the change in your life as far as hitting midlife? Are you having any symptoms of perimenopause? Is your brain losing its mind? Like, what's happening?
Not yet. As far as I know, I'm hot all the time, but I think that might just be because I live in Atlanta, or maybe it's happening and I just don't know it yet. But I will say, like, one of the things that I think that is happening, that just happens as you get older and more just kind of settled, is like, I just don't care as much what everybody thinks, which is so nice. Like, how refreshing. And it's so hard in an industry that's like so caught up on aging and what everybody looks like, and you know, the size of your body, and everything is scrutinized at all times. And to just be able to like let it go a little bit and be like, you know, nobody's beating life. Like, we all are aging, and it's not a bad thing. It's natural. It's a wonderful thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great perspective.
It sure is. Yeah.
We just interviewed a guest from, you're too young, but the Fifth Dimensions. Do you remember the song Up, Up and Away?
Or Age of
Aquarius.
Oh yeah.
Aquarius.
Wow.
Yeah. One of the singers from there.
And she's turning 80, and she just wrote a book. So she's turning 80. She wrote a book. She is still touring with the Fifth Dimensions. She has a one-woman show, and she's hoping to record new music.
That's incredible.
Isn't
we were like, we are not worthy. Like, we could not. It's really an attitude. It's a perspective in life as you get older.
Yeah, because it's like, if you pack it up when you're 40 or 50, it's like you have so much more left. And it's such a different, like, you have a different perspective that's just as valid and just as interesting. And there's an audience for that too, because guess what? There's people in this world that are over 40 that also want to, you know, take in entertainment. So there's always an audience.
Yes, there is. There is. And that's something we really want to be recognized. We want people to realize that and keep paying attention, because we often you start to feel a little invisible, but there's some kind of good freedom in that as well. So it's like, oh, good, I can walk out without getting a cat call or whatever like that. So,
and you know, the thing that I found too over the last, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years is that like it's broadening. Like, what we see as a leading woman on television is not what it used to be. Like, I think that diversity and inclusion has also helped with showing all different walks of life and different ages and different sizes. And it's not just that one-dimensional character that we've seen on television as a leading person for so long. It's like, you know, and like ableism and like, because our film has an actor with special needs, and it's like, there's so many different types of stories out there to tell. And it's so much more interesting than this one-dimensional character with this one-dimensional lens. And so I think that's been really helpful too, for me as a woman that's getting older, to see that there are leading women that are over 40, and there are stories, and there's really interesting stories. It's like, there's a lot more out there.
Yeah, it is. Like just watching the Emmys the other night and seeing the number of women nominated and creators, everything like that. It's so refreshing to see
Yeah.
that.
It's slow, but it's happening.
It's
Yeah.
happening.
There
Yeah.
needs to be more roles for women who
Mhm.
are over 40, over 50, over 60 that
That's
aren't
true.
just so detailed specifically as the grandma or,
Yeah.
you know, just making
Oh,
them
yeah.
lead roles. We talked
Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah.
I think it was Meryl Streep that said like after she turned 40, all the roles she was being offered were witches. I think that she got offered a role and she was like, I will never play a witch because of that. And then eventually she decided to do it because she was like, you know what? I'm going to
Oh,
take
that's
it
right.
back.
Yeah. Be a witch.
Well, I think now also women are creating their own production companies and writing films for themselves.
And that's how we have more of those stories, is because we have to have people behind the scenes, writers, producers, directors that are making those stories that are women too. Absolutely.
Yes.
which is so can you also talk a little bit about the project, your personal passion? It's Project Chimp, right?
Yeah, Project
Mhm.
Chimps is in it's in North Georgia. It is a sanctuary for retired chimps that have been retired from research. So in 2016, it became illegal to do research in the United States on chimpanzees in captivity because they are endangered. So that was a law that was like in the works for a really long time. And it's just not like the research that was being done on chimps was super invasive. It was medical research, and it just wasn't like there's better ways. Like we can still get the science we need without doing that kind of research on chimps. So this sanctuary opened up because there was all of a sudden all these chimps that were in labs that could no longer be in research, and so they needed a place to go, and they couldn't all go to zoos because a lot of them weren't in a good place. Like they had issues because they had been in research for so long, so they needed sanctuary, so a place that they could go and just live out the rest of their days and be happy chimps. And so this place opened up, and Judy Greer, who's on Archer, and her husband Dean Johnson are both on the board, and they're the ones that let me know about it. And they're like, it's in Georgia, like it's 2 hours from Atlanta. So I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to get involved. So I drove up there and I took a tour and I saw what it was all about, and I cried a bunch because it's a beautiful place. And so that's how I got involved. And it's I think it's like 230 acres, and it's a sanctuary. They have villas that they live in, but they have full access to the outdoors. And all these chimps, like when they get there, they've never been outside. They've never walked on grass. They've never climbed a tree. And so watching them for the first time get to go outside it's life-changing. It's a really wonderful place. And we're still growing it. There's still a lot of chimps that are in the lab. We can only bring them, we can't bring them all at once because it takes, it's a process. So we're raising money and we're still building so that we can get all the rest of the chimps out of the lab.
Wow. I had no idea about that. And we're not that far from, well, we're about 4 hours from Atlanta. We're in Nashville.
Cool. Oh,
Yeah.
I love Nashville.
Yeah. So I had no idea. So is this place, people, can they not visit it because they're having to rehabilitate, or not rehabilitate, but just get the chimps acclimated to the area?
So that's right. So it's a sanctuary. So it's not open to the public because it's about the chimps getting to live their life without having to be looked at by people.
Right,
honestly.
right.
But we do have a lot of volunteer programs. So much of our work is done by volunteers. So that's a really good way to get involved. If you want to be around the chimps more and see them, you can volunteer. And then a few days a year, we have events where people from the public can come. Like at the end of October, we do something called Chimp or Treat. And it's like trick-or-treating for kids, but we have treat stations set up and kids can come trick-or-treat. And then they might get a glimpse at a chimp while they're there. So yeah, it's not open to the public.
Oh yeah, I didn't think it would be, because you're just trying to do what's best for the chimpanzees. So, yeah, that's cool.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, out of 12 seasons, what would you say was your favorite Archer episode?
Oh my gosh.
I know that's a big question because there's
It's
so
hard.
many.
There's a lot, but I think my favorite one was in season 5. That was our first like departure season. We were kind of doing something a little bit different. And it was the first time that you got to see Pam and Archer kind of as a duo. So the episode was called Southbound and Down. And it was like a Smokey and the Bandit style episode with Pam and Archer on the road together. And that was probably my favorite episode. It was really fun.
I just love how Pam's character evolved too from the beginning and how she's, just come
Totally.
around and evolved. So that just is a lot of fun. I love those cartoons.
And do you find that because when you're taping, there's really no verbal filter on Pam, that carries out into your real life where you're kind of just speaking your mind?
I always say that I wish I was more like Pam. Like the thing about her that's so great is that she really doesn't care what other people think of her.
Right.
And I wish that was who I was, but it's just unfortunately not. But yeah, she really just will say anything. And that has not bled out to my real life. I'm a Southern girl. I was raised to mind my P's and Q's.
Yeah. And I bet that's funny. Like I always know that if anything even I say here on the podcast, if someone like from my family or somebody I grew up with hears it, I'm like, and my husband will say, I was listening to your podcast. I'm like, oh, So do you ever get like any feedback from your family or friends that you grew up with about the things that come out of Pam's mouth?
What's funny is my mom started following me on Instagram and I'm like, oh no, that's the last thing I need is my mom to follow me on Instagram. And my niece is the one that showed her how to set up an Instagram account. I'm like, what are you doing? Because my mom is very conservative, but my parents both are. And so they do not like the show. And they try to I have a separate life that is what I do for a living and then who I am with them. And that is where we leave it. But all my friends, like all my high school friends and all the people that are my age, they love it. So I just have to keep it away from my parents and their church friends.
That's gotta be hard.
How did you come up with the voice?
It's actually really funny. So when I was doing Frisky Dingo, they had me come in, the show had been done and they were doing DVD back when DVDs were still a thing. They were doing DVD extras. So they had me come in to record some stuff for Frisky Dingo DVDs. And while I was there, they were like, hey, we want to show you this character we want you to play for this other show. And it was just like Pam's head on a monitor. And they had one of the lines from Frisky Dingo coming out of Pam's mouth so they could just see what my voice looked like with the character. And when I saw her, I remember thinking that like what she would sound like would be, it's my voice, but it's the voice I do when I'm talking as my mom. Like, are you really going to wear that? Like that kind of thing, just a little Midwestern, a little bit high pitched. And so that's where the voice came from.
Oh, I love it.
When we were interviewing Melanie Chardoff, who does the voice of Dd Pickles in Rugrats, she was like, it's my grandmother. Like my older grandmother's voice and that, because we were like, how did you come up with Dd Pickles? It's so different than your voice.
Totally.
It was her grandmother. So I guess you kind of pull from your own experience.
Yeah, what you know.
To come up with a voice. Well, when can we expect the independent film is starting production in December, but will it be out for next holiday season?
Well, that's the thing that's kind of crazy. So we'll shoot and then we'll do post-production at the beginning of next year. So hopefully by next December, we'll maybe be doing screenings that are private because we're going to want to try to do all of the film festivals. And that's a whole thing where like they want you to premiere there. And so we can't have premiered before. And so we're going to try to do the festival circuit first. So it'll probably be actually the year after that, 2023, before actually everybody can see it. I know movies take so long to make. I'm I'm going to look totally different.
Yeah. We interviewed a woman from England that has the Women Over 50 Film Festival. And it's really neat. It's just anybody on the production or a producer or the character has somebody in the
heart of the film.
Making of the heart of the film has to be a woman over 50.
Love that.
Yeah. And it's really something. And we were talking to her and she was just talking about how long it takes to get any of these things going and off the ground.
That's what's great about having improv on the other side of things, because everything's so fast and it's gone after one performance and then you never get it back. So this is the total opposite end of the spectrum.
Right. And so now Dad's Garage, is that a theater or was that the Improv? Is that where you did the improv at Dad's Garage?
That's an improv theater in Atlanta, and that's where I started many, many years ago. And we're still up and running. I mean, we had to take some time off, obviously, but we're back doing live shows. And thank God, it's so great to be in front of an audience again and hear people laugh. And people are so excited to go back out and, get to do things in person with other people. It's really wonderful.
It is. Where in Atlanta is my daughter went to school in Atlanta. She's not there anymore. She went to Georgia Tech. So I was
Okay.
kind of
Yes.
familiar with Atlanta. Where is
Yeah, it's
Dad's Garage?
we were located in Little Five Points, which I'm sure she's familiar with. And now we're in Old Fourth Ward, which is the
Okay.
next neighborhood over. It's right off of the Beltline.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I was curious about that.
Well, didn't Archer's 12th season just start recently?
Yeah, we're about halfway through airing. So yeah.
Okay, great. Well, make sure, guys, to check it out. And thank you so much, Amber, for
Yes,
coming on.
thank you.
What a treat. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate being on.
Oh, thank you.